And let's get into this next question. So, no matter what, before we figure out what type of question it is, we're going to read the question sentence. So here it says, if there are 40 brushes here, how many crayons are there? Okay, so before I stress myself out, I know for a fact that I am looking for some number of crayons. Before I continue, before we get stressed, before that anxiety kicks in, yes or no, does that make sense, my party people? We are looking specifically for the number of crayons, and we are given the number of brushes 40 brushes that go along with this unknown number of crayons. Does that make sense, at least on the surface, before we start taking a look at this extra information? All right, perfect. So if that makes sense on the surface, watch what happens next. Here it says, an art room stores brushes, markers, and crayons in a ratio of 5 to 8 to 6. This might be right about the time where we might be freaking out, right? We might be a little timid about this one because you might be thinking, oh, hey, coach, he taught me with proportions and ratios, compare the same things in the same way. So let me show you how that doesn't change. Let me show you how that is still the right way to think about this. Take a look. We have the ratio of 5 to 8 to 6. Knowing that the order matters with ratios, my party people, help me out. What does the 5 represent when it comes to that ratio that we just read? The 5 is that first number. What was the first item mentioned? Brushes, that's right. Notice brushes, markers, crayons. 5, 8, 6. So that means that my brushes are 5, my markers are 8, and my crayons are 6. Let me write that down to show you where things are. We have brushes, then we have markers, and then we have crayons. Let me show you how we're done. We're good to go. Because all we need to do to set up a proportion is compare the same things in the same way. Here we start off with crayons. Everybody help me out. What number represents crayons in that ratio that we just wrote down? 6, right here, my party people. 6 crayons. So I'll go ahead and write 6 for crayons. And then everybody, how or which of these two remaining numbers should we use? Which of these remaining numbers should we use? If you're thinking 5, give me the reason why. What is the reason why? Brushes. Exactly. What did we say before? Compare the same things in the same way. We have 5 brushes right here. So we will write 5 for brushes over here. We have the 8 markers, but do we need that to complete our proportion? No, we do not. We are comparing crayons to brushes, and we were able to point out the crayons and brushes inside of the ratio. So now we have compared the same things in the same way, and we're done. No more complicated mess here, nothing other than that. So now we're good. We can set up our proportion. I'll compare crayons to brushes. C over 40. I'll use C for crayons. Compare crayons to brushes again. Same comparisons in the same way. 6 over 5. Again, crayons to brushes, crayons to brushes. We are comparing the same things in the same way, and we're good. A nice and super easy way to calculate this would be comparing the same things in the same way. 5 times 8 is 40, so 6 times 8 will be our answer. My party people, what is 6 times 8? What's that going to give us? 6 times 8 gives us 48. And that's what will give us that final correct answer right there. Boom. The correct answer here is D. And I can show you one more way to do this. We can cross multiply and divide straight up. C times 5, 5C. 40 times 6, that will end up being 240. And then when we divide both sides by 5, 240 divided by 5, that's going to give us 48. So there are two different ways to do the actual calculation, but there is, again, the very important part of just getting the information you need. What do I mean by that? I noticed that my question sentence compared brushes and crayons right here. Crayons and brushes. So I knew that all I had to do was compare crayons and brushes. I noticed that crayons was represented by 6 in the ratio and brushes were represented by 5, which meant that this 8 for markers, it was actually extra information. We didn't need to use it to solve the problem, and that's what made this a little easier than a true triple ratio total question. How do we feel about this one before we move on to the next one? All right, so let's check this problem out. It's a pretty straightforward one, right? It says, hey, find the mean of 6, 8, and 10. Okay, sounds good. So my party people, when we think about finding the mean, we are also thinking about calculating the average. And so to calculate that, here's what we want to do. The easy way to put it is to calculate the mean. We just want to add up all the numbers. So you want to get the total. So add all the numbers up that you have. And then you want to divide by the number of numbers. That's it. That's all you want to do to calculate the mean. So again, we're going to calculate the total. So we're going to add them all up. And then we're going to divide by the amount or the number of numbers. That's a very easy way for me to write it, because if I say amount, you might confuse it with total amount. So I don't want to confuse anybody. We're just going to say number of numbers. And in this case, everybody, how many numbers are we observing? Between 6, 8, and 10, that is going to be a total of 3 numbers. So right there, that's where our 3 goes. And then we're just going to calculate the total right up here. So to do that, we'll have 6 plus 8 plus 10. 6 plus 8 is going to give us 14. And then 14 plus 10, that's going to give us 24. And there we are. So once we have that in there, boom, that's going to be 24 divided by 3. And my party people, what is 24 divided by 3 going to give us? Yeah, that's going to be 8. And that is our mean for this problem. That's going to be answer choice C. And we're all good to move forward. The mean or the average would be 8.